the legend, the icon, the pride of Guadalajara, Mexico, the undisputed super middleweight champion of the world, Saul Canelo Alvarez. The man just did an open workout for the media. And let me tell you this, ladies and gentlemen, one thing that I took away from this media workout is how Canelo looked physically. Canelo looks slim. And if you go back to my videos a few weeks ago, I said that if Canelo wants to turn back time, and if Canelo wants to put on a spectacular performance versus Bud Crawford, he needs to go back to the same shape that he looked versus Billy Joe, where he was extremely light and extremely fast and sharp, and he was fighting a slick southpaw that night, let's not forget. And Bud Crawford will fight Canelo as a southpaw, I'm telling you. So Canelo Alvarez is doing everything correctly in order for him to beat Bud Crawford. And listen, ladies and gentlemen, this is a game changer. You know, I wasn't really sure which Canelo we were gonna get, because if you actually think about it, in my opinion, when you talk about Canelo's career in the last 4 to 5 years, in my opinion, the best Canelo in the past 4 or 5 years was when Canelo was the Canelo that fought Billy Joe Saunders in Texas. Canelo that night, he didn't just beat Billy Joe because he was better. Of course he's better. He's 10 levels above Billy Joe. But one of the main reasons why he looked so impressive that night was not just because, he broke his eye socket. No, ladies and gentlemen. But because of the speed and timing Canelo displayed that night. Canelo, in all of his fights, his timing is great. When you talk about rolling with punches, when you talk about slipping punches, when you talk about exiting the pocket, entering the pocket, landing combinations, head to the body, body head. The man's timing, it's always been there. But his speed, however, if you look back at his last fight versus William Skull, if you look back at the Munguia fight, he was heavy. That Munguia fight, I love it. It's actually one of my favorite Canelo fights, the Munguia fight. For some reason, I don't know why. But especially the first 6 rounds, listen, Munguia came out like a man possessed. And now that he tested positive for PEDs, we know why. But that fight, I love that fight. I've watched it many times. Even the setting and the theme, all-out Mexican war. Listen, that fight was a war. Canelo took some bombs in that fight. And he was never fazed. Even though Munguia was landing flush on Canelo. But Canelo proved once again that his chin is granite. But getting back to the shape and getting back to this fight versus Bud Crawford. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, if Canelo wants to win this fight, he's going to need to be light and sharp, and he needs to use that left hook, that devastating left hook to the body. And I think this will be his game plan. Look at how light he looks. And even look at him shadow boxing. Usually when Canelo shadow boxes, he's not light on his feet. Usually when Canelo shadow boxes, the man is flat-footed, working on head movement, more upper body movement. But now, in this workout that we saw, the man, yes, he did have a lot of upper body movement, but when you bring Canelo with light footwork and elusive upper body movement, the man is simply one of the greatest fighters of all time. But if you bring the Canelo who has his feet stuck in the mud, like the way that he fought William Skull, and even though William Skull ran for his life, but that's still not an excuse. That is not an excuse. Canelo is way better than what he showed that night. He's way better. And that is why we've been all asking this question. Is Canelo slowing down? Is Canelo past his prime? Why? Because of his last few performances. In my opinion, prime Canelo, would knock out Berlanga in 3 rounds. Maximum. In my opinion, prime Canelo would knock out Munguia in 6 rounds. in my opinion, Prime Canelo would knock out John Ryder in 5 rounds. I mean, all these names that I'm mentioning, they've all been knocked out before by people much lesser than Canelo. Munguia knocked out by Bruno Suras. Berlanga, the excuse maker, got destroyed by our brother, our legend, future legend, God willing, Hamza Shiraz. And especially the Edgar Berlanga fight. And even John Ryder. John Ryder got knocked out by Nick Blackwell, the guy who Chris Eubank gave him brain damage. Nick Blackwell, you know, he's a small middleweight who's not even world level, not even British level, European level, and he knocked out John Ryder. So we are right to question whether Canelo is still in his prime. Is the man slowing down? Is the man this? Is the man that? All these questions are valid. But even though Canelo might not be in his peak prime at 100%, but 70 or 80% of Canelo is still good enough to beat any boxer on any given night. But when you talk about his fight, actually I just rewatched the small clips of the Piers Morgan interview with Canelo and Bud. Canelo said, Bud does a lot of things better than me, but I also do things that he will never see after he fights me. And he's right. Canelo does a lot of things better than Crawford, but Canelo is also smart enough to realize that Crawford does many things better than Canelo. And when you talk about this fight, this big of a magnitude, high stakes, every single belt in boxing will be on the line, this, that, Canelo needs to bring his A game. And I believe that the Canelo that I saw in the open workout proved that he is coming with his A game, that he is gonna bring back the vintage Canelo Alvarez. Because if you actually think about it, Canelo, you know, he's always been the smallest super middleweight and not even one of the biggest middleweights. I mean, the man was, you can say he was an average size middleweight, but he's definitely a small super middleweight. But I believe that Canelo, year after year, with fighting, you know, such level of opposition, like poor level of opposition in the past couple of years, the man kind of lost the hunger, kind of lost the fire. The man wanted something big. The man wanted something so significant to get him up for a massive occasion like this one. And I believe this is it, ladies and gentlemen. I believe fighting on Netflix, fighting Bud Crawford, one of the greatest fighters of all time, in a football stadium, Allegiant Stadium, first boxing event. I mean, just imagine. That night will be unbelievable. 3 weeks from today, by the way. Not too long to go, ladies and gentlemen. We are nearing one of the biggest and greatest fights of all time. And listen, with the shape that Canelo Alvarez is coming in with, he's going to be a very, very tough man to beat that night. And not just that, Canelo will be lighter, Canelo will be faster, Canelo will be sharper, but his power will remain the same. We've seen throughout Canelo's career that even though the man doesn't really knock out anyone anymore, but his power is still enough to gain your respect. And that is why you never see anyone. I mean, Munguia tried to run over Canelo. He tried to literally have a firefight. He was like, his mindset, you can tell, I'm coming to knock this man out early. That was Munguia's mindset. And listen, much respect, to be honest. That's why I love that fight, because Munguia wasn't scared. Munguia came in like a machine gun early on. And again, now that he tested positive for PEDs, it makes sense. Shame on you, Munguia. Shame on Jaime Munguia. The man was one of my favorite fighters. But now the man he's disgraceful. You know, he disgraced himself. And he tested positive for steroids. He didn't test positive for a fat burning supplement. He tested positive for steroids. So listen, Jaime Munguia, let's forget about him. Let's get back to this topic. Canelo Alvarez. Listen, I believe that this fight, we're gonna see the best Canelo and we're gonna see the best Crawford. And that is why I truly believe, and mark my words, this will be one of the greatest fights that we have ever seen. And I absolutely cannot wait for it.